My name is Harrison. I'm 36 years old and an emerging writer residing in a modest apartment in a small town across the vast American landscape. Describing myself as a writer might sound grand, but in truth, I'm simply a lean figure hunched over an aged laptop, meticulously shaping each sentence, every word, clinging to the faint hope that my work will one day see publication. For more than a decade, I've penned numerous manuscripts, submitted them without success, and consigned them to a dusty drawer. Some label me an undiscovered author, but I perceive myself as a visionary trapped in a reality burdened by escalating bills and the sounds of young children. I'm a father to 3 children: Emma, 8 years old with soft brown hair and radiant, optimistic eyes; Liam, a 5-year-old with an endearing grin and small hands that constantly grasp the edge of my shirt; and Noah, the youngest, 3 years old, perpetually giggling and seeking affection. My children embody my entire existence, yet they also represent a responsibility I never could have foreseen when I embraced the role of a single father. Claire, their mother, departed 2 years prior. She declared me too impoverished, too inept to provide for a family, asserting that I was a failure unworthy of her aspirations. I can still recall that final evening when she packed her belongings, leaving me with 3 children and a mountain of unpaid bills. Noah was just beginning to walk then. I've never genuinely resented Claire, not entirely. Perhaps she simply yearned for a different existence, one less demanding, with fewer anxieties. But that doesn't alleviate the sting of being abandoned on a frigid winter night, cradling a wailing Noah, with Emma tugging at my sleeve, inquiring about her mother, and Liam sobbing, bewildered by the unfolding events. Since then, I've served as father, mother, chef, storyteller, and the individual toiling day and night to cover the rent and purchase milk for the children. Our apartment, with its 2 worn bedrooms and faded walls, is the sole place we can call home. Each morning, I awaken before dawn. I brew a weak cup of coffee, quietly prepare a simple breakfast of toast and peanut butter, rouse Emma, Liam, and Noah, dress them, and hurry them off to preschool and elementary school. I return to the silent apartment, open my laptop, and commence typing. Yet, writing alone doesn't sustain 3 children. I accept any freelance writing assignments I can find online, composing advertisements, refining texts, even translating medical documents. By day, I'm a hired pen. By night, I'm an uncredited author. And amidst all this commotion, I must still fulfill the role of a father, the one who comforts the children when they're unwell, mends Emma's dress when it tears at school, and reads bedtime stories each evening before they sleep. My family. They've never truly comprehended my path. My parents reside in Florida, in an opulent beachfront condominium where sunlight streams through the skylights. They call a few times annually, engage in polite conversation, then remind me that I should have pursued a practical profession like accounting or engineering. They haven't visited since Claire's departure, and whenever I request them to look after the children for a weekend, they invariably offer an excuse, occupied with a yacht excursion or a golf match. I once harbored hopes that they would change, that they would recognize how diligently I've strived to prevent this family from disintegrating. But all they perceive is a Harrison unable to generate income, not a father desperately clinging to his last vestiges of hope. Each time I observe my 3 children sleeping peacefully in their beds, my heart feels heavy. Sometimes I contemplate, if only I could provide them with more. A spacious dwelling, nutritious meals, weekend excursions they've only witnessed on television. But all I can do is persevere, day by day, hour by hour, working, writing, and holding my children close as night descends. I'm aware I'm living on the edge, not solely financially, but on the precipice of exhaustion. There are nights, after the children are asleep, when I sit before my computer screen and tears simply fall. Not due to the narrative I'm composing, but because of the overwhelming sensation of helplessness. Regardless of how earnestly I try, I'm still not proficient enough, still not earning enough, still not resilient enough to keep everything intact. But then I wipe away the tears and admonish myself that I cannot surrender. I cannot allow Emma, Liam, and Noah to witness my vulnerability. They require me, and I require them. But no matter how often I assured myself I wouldn't crumble, destiny continued to test us mercilessly. One frigid morning, Emma began to cough violently. Her raspy coughs reverberated through our small apartment like waves crashing against the fragile foundations of my existence. Initially, I believed it was merely a common cold. Children are prone to illness this time of year. But by midday, Emma was consumed by fever, her face pallid and lips chapped. She lay curled in bed, her weary eyes gazing at me as if to convey she could no longer endure it. Panic set in. I had no one to consult for guidance. I telephoned the local physician we knew, and he instructed me to take Emma to the hospital without delay. In a frenzied haste, I packed a small bag with clothing, a water bottle, and fever medication. Liam and Noah clung to my legs, asking, "What's wrong with Emma, Daddy?" I couldn't provide an answer, only told them to grab their jackets as I scooped Emma up and headed to the car. The hospital was a mere 10-minute drive from our apartment, but that day the journey felt interminably long. I drove with one hand, the other grasping Emma's cold little hand. In the rearview mirror, I observed Liam and Noah sitting quietly in the back seat, their eyes wide with concern and perplexity. I kept whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart, we'll be at the hospital soon." But in truth, I was reassuring myself. Upon our arrival at the hospital, doctors and nurses swiftly escorted Emma into the emergency room. I stood outside, clutching the hands of my two younger children, my heart pounding erratically. A nurse inquired about Emma's medical background, and I stammered through my responses, barely able to draw breath. Finally, the doctor emerged, his countenance grave, and informed me that Emma was suffering from severe anemia and required immediate in-depth testing. They suspected a serious blood disorder, possibly leukemia. I froze. Leukemia. The word cancer echoed in my mind like a sledgehammer. With trembling hands, I telephoned Claire, endeavoring to keep my voice steady. "Emma's in the hospital," I stated. "The doctors say she has a serious blood condition. I need you to come assist with Liam and Noah. I can't manage alone." Her reply was as chilling as ice. "Harrison, you know I've embarked on a new life. I can't abandon everything to return. You'll have to manage." I was struck dumb before the call concluded with a prolonged beep. I attempted to contact my parents, clinging to a faint hope that they would demonstrate some concern for their grandchildren. But they dismissed me, asserting they were traveling in Europe and couldn't return early. I stood in the hospital corridor, clutching my head, feeling the world crumble around me. Emma was lying in a hospital room, Liam and Noah clinging to my legs. I had no one, not a single soul. I escorted Liam and Noah to a small waiting area outside the treatment zone, allowing them to play with some worn toys. I sat on a plastic chair, laptop in hand, attempting to complete a freelance writing assignment to accumulate some funds. But my mind couldn't concentrate. Each time a nurse emerged from Emma's room, my heart ceased. That evening, Emma awoke, her weak eyes meeting mine. "Daddy, I'm so weary," she whispered. I leaned down, took her small hand, and comforted her. "I know, my love. You're doing wonderfully. Daddy's right here." Liam and Noah sat close to me, eventually drifting off to sleep on the chairs. I quietly draped my jacket over them, then settled back by Emma's bedside, holding her hand as if clutching a fragile thread of hope. That night, I didn't sleep. I remained there, observing the blinking lights of the monitor, listening to the soft hum of the breathing apparatus, feeling helplessness and solitude permeate every vein. The following morning, the doctor confirmed that Emma would necessitate prolonged hospitalization for treatment and to await further test outcomes. I was at a loss for what to do. I couldn't leave Liam and Noah at home unattended, nor could I leave Emma here by herself. Ultimately, I implored the hospital to permit the younger two to stay with us despite the cramped and unsuitable conditions. The four of us, or three if you didn't count Emma lying in the hospital bed, were crammed into a small hospital room where the stark white glare of fluorescent lights illuminated the ceiling. Meals were rushed, comprising cold deli sandwiches and boxed orange juice. Liam and Noah played on the hospital floor with a few old toy cars. I attended to Emma while keeping a watchful eye on the younger two, terrified something else might go amiss. Those days felt interminable. I was utterly depleted, but I had no other recourse. Each morning, I awoke on the hard plastic chair in Emma's hospital room, my body aching, my eyes heavy from insufficient sleep. I'd rise early, gently rouse Liam and Noah sleeping nearby, and hasten them to school. As they entered their classrooms, I'd rush back to the hospital to care for Emma. She lay in her bed, her face consistently pale, her lips parched. I'd hold her hand, murmuring, "Daddy's here, you don't have to be afraid." Throughout the day, I juggled caring for Emma and working on freelance writing assignments on my laptop to make ends meet. At noon, I'd grab a quick meal at the hospital cafeteria, a sandwich and diluted coffee, my mind preoccupied with retrieving the younger children in the afternoon. Directly after school, I'd depart the hospital, drive to pick up Liam and Noah, and return. The three of us would pile into the old car, the children chattering about their day at school, though their eyes still reflected concern for their sister Emma. In the evenings, I brought them to Emma's hospital room. Liam would sit on the bed beside her, recounting his school day while Noah scribbled on paper. I'd inquire about Emma's condition with the nurses, supervise the younger two, and type a few lines on my laptop to complete freelance work. Day after day unfolded in this draining, stifling cycle. I was utterly exhausted. Some nights I'd doze off on the plastic chair by Emma's bed only to be jolted awake when Noah cried out, "Daddy, where are you?" In those long nights, I'd watch my two younger children sleeping on the chairs, heads resting against each other, then turn to hold Emma's small hand, reiterating to myself, I have to persist. For the children. For Emma. The days in the hospital stretched on, and Liam and Noah gradually became accustomed to the confined waiting room. Liam, with his small hands, sketched vibrant drawings of superheroes to present to his sister, while Noah clutched his toy dinosaur, prattling about imaginary escapades. I strove to keep them engaged, hoping they wouldn't perceive the harsh reality encroaching. Emma, their strong older sister, was weakening with each passing day. I juggled attending to Emma, supervising the younger two, and typing freelance articles on my aged laptop in the corner of the room. Each day was a struggle, not merely against Emma's ailment, but against myself, against the fear gnawing at me bit by bit. I telephoned Claire one final time, though I knew it was futile. "Claire, Emma needs you," I said over the phone, my voice quivering. "She's very frail. Can you visit her even just once?" But as always, her response was frigid. "Harrison, I cannot return. I have my own life now. You'll cope." The prolonged beep of the disconnected call echoed, and I sat there in the hospital hallway feeling as though someone had pierced my chest. I contacted my parents, but they merely stated, "We'll be back after our trip, Harrison." Endure, son. Endure. The words felt like a mockery. I had no one, not a single family member to share this burden. Just me, Emma, Liam, and Noah in a hospital room permeated by the smell of antiseptic. Angela, a young nurse assigned to Emma's care, was the sole beacon in those somber days. She possessed brown hair tied in a high ponytail, gentle eyes, and a soft yet firm manner of speaking. Each time she entered the room to check Emma's or monitor her heart rate, she'd smile at Liam and Noah, sometimes offering them small sweets. "Your children are adorable, Harrison," she remarked once, observing Noah fall asleep clutching his plastic dinosaur. "You're an exceptional father." I offered a faint smile and shook my head. "I'm not so certain about that, Angela. I'm merely endeavoring to prevent everything from unraveling." One morning, after nearly 3 weeks of Emma's hospitalization, the doctor summoned me to a private room. Dr. Carter, a middle-aged man with thick spectacles and a resonant voice, regarded me with an expression that conveyed nothing positive. I seated myself on the plastic chair opposite him, my hands clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. "Harrison," he commenced cautiously, "we have the results of the in-depth tests. Emma has acute myeloid leukemia, or AML. It's a very severe form of blood cancer." The word cancer detonated in my mind. I felt the blood drain from my face. The air in the room grew heavy. "How serious?" I inquired, my voice cracking. Dr. Carter sighed, adjusting his glasses. "The prognosis for AML in children isn't favorable, Harrison. We'll initiate chemotherapy immediately, but I need you to brace yourself. The survival rate, it's not high." I cannot recall how I departed the doctor's office. All I know is that I stood in the corridor, my back against the wall, hands clutching my head, striving not to scream. Emma, my 8-year-old daughter who once frolicked on the playground and recounted her aspirations of soaring on a dragon, was battling a disease I couldn't even fully comprehend. I yearned to smash something, to shout at Claire, at my parents, at the world, but I couldn't. I had to return to the room, smile at Emma, and assure her everything would be fine. The ensuing weeks were an agonizing haze. Emma commenced chemotherapy, and each time I saw her lying in bed, her hair thinning, her face pale, my heart fragmented. She still attempted to converse, inquiring about Liam and Noah, smiling when I read her fairy tales. But I could perceive the light in her eyes diminishing, like a candle flickering in the wind. Liam and Noah, young as they were, sensed the alteration. Liam ceased drawing superheroes, instead sketching depictions of a girl lying in bed encircled by blossoms. Noah persistently asked, "When will Emma come home to play with me, Daddy?" Angela was there for us more than I could have imagined. She didn't merely perform her duties, checking IVs, taking temperatures, updating charts. She offered quiet solace. One afternoon, as I sat by Emma's bed, too weary to keep my eyes open, Angela entered and placed a warm cup of coffee on the table. "You need to rest, Harrison," she stated, her voice gentle yet firm. "I know you're resilient, but you're human too." I looked at her, wanting to express gratitude, but my throat tightened. Instead, I simply nodded, grasping the coffee cup as if it were a lifeline to some comfort. One night, as Liam and Noah slept on the chairs, Angela sat beside me. "Do you wish to speak?" she asked. I shook my head, but then, like a breached dam, I began to articulate. About Claire, how she departed. About my parents, who never visited the children. About my apprehension of losing Emma. Of not being robust enough to shield my children. Angela listened without interruption, nodding gently and placing a hand on my shoulder. "I lost my brother to illness," she revealed when I paused. "I understand that feeling of powerlessness, but you're not alone, Harrison. I'm here, and Emma, Liam, and Noah, they need you more than ever." Her words were like a cool breeze in a tempest, yet they couldn't alleviate the growing anguish within me. A week later, Emma's condition rapidly worsened. The chemotherapy wasn't yielding the desired results. She suffered from persistent high fevers, couldn't eat, and the pain caused her to cry out during the night. I sat by her bed, holding her hand, singing the lullabies I used to croon when she was an infant. Though my voice trembled and faltered. "Daddy, I'm so exhausted," Emma whispered one night, her eyes closed. "I want to go home." I leaned down, kissed her forehead, tears falling onto the pillow. "I'll take you home, princess, I promise." But I couldn't fulfill that promise. A few days later, Emma passed away. I was seated by her bed, reading a story about a princess and a dragon, when the monitor began to beep frantically. Nurses rushed in, Dr. Carter appeared, but I knew in that instant that Emma was gone. I held her in my arms, her small body now weightless, no longer warm. "Emma, don't leave," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Please, don't depart, Daddy." But she didn't respond. She would never respond again. The world crumbled. I don't recall how long I wept, only that Liam and Noah, awakening amidst the turmoil, ran to me and clung to me. Liam sobbed. "Where's Emma, Daddy?" Noah, with his innocent eyes, simply held my hand and whispered, "Don't cry, Daddy." But I couldn't stop. I had lost Emma, my brightest light, the girl who dreamed of dragons and taught me how to be a father. I felt I had failed. Failed Emma, failed Liam, failed Noah, failed myself. Angela remained with me throughout those hours. She uttered nothing, simply stood there, a hand gently on my shoulder, a quiet anchor preventing my collapse. She assisted in caring for Liam and Noah, taking them outdoors to play so I could remain with Emma to bid my final farewell. When I left the room, clutching Emma's tiny sweater, Angela approached and offered me a glass of water. "Harrison," she stated, her voice low but steady, "I know it feels like you cannot continue, but Liam and Noah are still here. They need you. And Emma, she would want you to persevere." I didn't respond. I couldn't. But deep down I knew Angela was correct. Liam and Noah, the two little boys sitting in the waiting room, still required me. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and walked out to embrace my sons. "We'll be all right," I asserted, though I didn't believe it myself. But I had to try. For Liam, for Noah, and for Emma, who would forever be a part of me, even if solely in memory. The days that followed were a profound void. I arranged Emma's funeral, a simple ceremony in the small church in Willow Creek. Only myself, Liam, Noah, and a few kind neighbors attended. Claire did not appear, merely sending a brief text, "I'm so sorry, Harrison." My parents arrived for the funeral after their trip, but by then it held no significance for me. I stood by Emma's small casket, gazing at her serene face, pondering if I could continue living without her. The days after Emma's funeral felt as though I was no longer Harrison. I was a hollow shell, moving, speaking, and breathing. But internally, there was only a cavernous black void. Each morning I glanced in the mirror and beheld a stranger, a man with bloodshot eyes, deep dark circles, and a gaunt countenance sculpted by time's relentless passage. I had lost Emma, my 8-year-old girl with a smile as radiant as the sun, who dreamed of dragons and believed her father could achieve anything. Now, each time I stepped into the small room where Emma used to sleep, my heart shattered anew. Her bunk bed remained, with the flower-patterned blanket she cherished, but it was now a painful reminder that she would never return. Liam and Noah still depended on me. That was the sole factor preventing me from succumbing to the darkness. But I won't prevaricate, there were moments when I contemplated surrendering entirely. One night, after Liam and Noah were fast asleep, I sat on the living room couch, clutching an old bottle of sleeping pills I discovered in the medicine cabinet. I fixated on the small, smooth white pills, wondering if they could transport me away, to a place devoid of pain, of bills, of shattered aspirations. I envisioned lying down, closing my eyes, and allowing everything to dissipate. But then I heard Noah murmur in his sleep, "Daddy," and the image of Liam's bewildered eyes inquiring about Emma flashed in my mind. I couldn't do it. I couldn't permit my remaining children to lose another person. I discarded the bottle in the refuse bin, buried my face in my hands, and sobbed, admonishing myself, "You must live, Harrison. For them." Our apartment was now eerily quiet. No more of Emma's tales about school, no more of her giggles as she played with Liam and Noah. Liam grew more subdued. He stopped drawing superheroes or family portraits. Instead, he spent hours at the kitchen table, sketching flowers, mimicking Emma's blanket, and placing them by her bed. "So Emma can see them, Daddy," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I hugged him tightly, striving not to let him perceive my tears. Noah, being so young, didn't fully grasp what had transpired. Every night he clutched his plastic dinosaur, curled up in my lap, and asked, "Where's Emma, Daddy? When's she returning?" I didn't know how to respond, so I'd kiss his forehead and declare, "She's in the sky, sweetheart. She's observing us." I endeavored to maintain normalcy for Liam and Noah, but nothing was normal. I took them to preschool each morning, prepared simple meals, pasta, deli sandwiches, and read them bedtime stories each night. But every action felt burdensome, as if I were dragging a massive boulder. I continued to accept freelance writing assignments, typing soulless articles about 10 budgeting tips for families, or how to plan the perfect birthday party on my rickety laptop. But whenever I opened the file for my book from ashes, I simply stared at the screen, unable to compose a single word. How could I write about discovering meaning in life when I felt it had vanished? Angela was the one who extricated me from that quagmire, though she didn't even realize how crucial she was. One afternoon she knocked on our apartment door holding a box of homemade cookies. "I thought the children might enjoy these," she stated with a gentle smile. I was astonished by her visit. Liam and Noah cheered, rushing to embrace her, and for a moment our small apartment seemed to brighten. Angela sat down, played with Noah, helped Liam with a puzzle, and conversed with me as if we had known each other for years. "How are you coping, Harrison?" she inquired, her eyes filled with concern. I wished to lie to say I was fine, but gazing into her eyes, I simply sighed. "I don't know, Angela. I don't know how to persevere." She didn't press me to elaborate, simply nodded and shared about her younger brother who passed away from heart disease when she was young. "There were days I thought I'd never get through it," she recounted, "but then I realized continuing to live was the sole way to preserve his memory." Her words were like a soft breeze, insufficient to erase the pain but enough to make me feel I wasn't entirely alone. One night after Liam and Noah were asleep, I opened my laptop and gazed at the From Ashes file. I didn't intend to write, merely to peruse the lines I'd composed long ago when I still believed I could create something worthwhile. But then, as if a portal in my heart swung open, I began typing. I wrote about Emma, her smile, her dragon dreams, the way she held my hand in the hospital. I wrote about Claire, her betrayal, and the time she rejected our children. I wrote about my parents, who opted for a European holiday over their ailing granddaughter. And I wrote about myself, a single father, a dreamer crushed by life, yet still clinging to hope for my 2 remaining children. The words flowed out like a river carrying both anguish and affection. I wrote every night when the apartment was tranquil with only the sound of typing and the steady breathing of Liam and Noah. I didn't know if what I was composing was publishable, but for the first time in months, I felt I was engaged in something meaningful. Each page was a means to keep Emma alive, to confront my sorrow, and to remind myself I still had Liam and Noah. Angela became our cornerstone. She visited more frequently, bringing cookies, storybooks for the children, or simply sitting and listening to me. Once, when I informed her about my new pages, she smiled. "You should complete that book, Harrison. I believe it will resonate with people." I shook my head, offering a faint chuckle. "It's just the rambling thoughts of a struggling single dad." But she placed her hand on mine, her voice firm. "No, Harrison. It's the narrative of a devoted father who didn't surrender, even when everything was stacked against him. That's a story worth sharing." Her words ignited a small flicker of light within me. I started dedicating more time to the book, writing in the late hours after Liam and Noah were asleep. I wrote about the hospital days, about Emma's weary eyes saying, "I'm so tired," about Liam drawing flowers for his sister, about Noah clutching his dinosaur and sleeping on my lap. I wrote about the solitude, the sensation of being abandoned by family, the nights I contemplated giving up. But I also wrote about the moments that sustained me, Liam's smile, Noah's laughter, and Angela's compassion. Life remained challenging. Bills accumulated, the landlord dispatched rent reminders, and I still had to churn out freelance articles to survive. But the book became a sanctuary, a means to rediscover myself. Liam and Noah, too, slowly rediscovered small joys. Liam began drawing superheroes again, though sometimes he'd add a flower in the corner. Noah, with the boundless energy of a 3-year-old, pulled me into playful games like pretending to be a dinosaur or constructing pillow forts. I chuckled, though each smile carried a pang of sorrow. One evening, when Angela visited, she brought a small birthday cake, not for anyone's birthday, simply because she wished to commemorate a joyful day. Liam and Noah cheered, eagerly racing to extinguish the candles, and I gazed at Angela, my heart swelling with immense gratitude. "Thank you, Angela," I stated, my voice hoarse. "You don't realize how much this signifies to us." She smiled, her eyes gentle. "I merely wished to witness you and the children smile, Harrison. You merit it." I began to comprehend that Angela was more than a kind nurse. She was a friend, someone who understood me more than anyone ever had. She didn't attempt to mend me or urge me to move past the pain. She was simply present, like a beacon illuminating the path I was treading. And I, though my heart was still broken, began to feel a glimmer of hope. Not because things would be easy, but because I knew I wasn't entirely alone. The long nights persisted, and I wrote. I wrote about Emma, Liam, Noah, and Angela. I wrote about a man who believed he would break but rose again, for the love of his children, for the remembrance of a little girl who taught him how to be resilient. I didn't know if this book would transform my life, but I knew each word was a stride forward, a means to uphold my promise to Emma that I would continue, even if the world crumbled. 6 months elapsed since Emma's passing. I finally completed the manuscript for From Ashes. I submitted it to publishers, clinging to a faint possibility. Then one morning I received an email from a modest publishing house in New York. I was seated in the kitchen nursing a weak coffee while Liam and Noah squabbled over the last cookie. The email's subject was straightforward: offer to publish From Ashes. My heart pounded, my hands trembling as I opened it. "Dear Mr. Harrison," they wrote, "we were profoundly moved by your raw and sincere narrative. We believe this book possesses the potential to touch the hearts of countless readers." I read it repeatedly, convinced I must be dreaming. After years of rejection letters, I couldn't fathom that someone recognized worth in the words I composed through tears. The publication process advanced more rapidly than I had anticipated. I collaborated with an editor named Sarah, a middle-aged woman with a gentle yet astute voice. She assisted in refining the manuscript, preserving my unvarnished, authentic tone while enhancing the story's coherence. "This isn't merely your story, Harrison," Sarah remarked over the phone. "It's the story of anyone who's experienced profound loss, who believed they couldn't endure, but rose again." I nodded, though she couldn't see, feeling a flicker of pride for the first time in years. From Ashes was released on a rainy October day. I didn't anticipate much, hoping only to sell a few hundred copies, enough to settle some debts and acquire new toys for Liam and Noah. But then, like a surging tide, the book gained momentum. A review in the local newspaper hailed it as a heartfelt tribute to fathers, mothers, and shattered spirits. A popular blogger disseminated my story on social media, and soon from ashes ascended Amazon's bestseller list. I received emails from readers globally. Fathers who had lost children, single mothers, individuals who thought they couldn't overcome their pain. They wrote, "Your story made me feel less isolated." Each letter was a building block, restoring a part of me that had crumbled. Then came the interviews. A local television station invited me to their studio where I sat under blinding lights, haltingly recounting stories of Emma, Liam, Noah, and the nights I believed I couldn't carry on. "What compelled you to keep writing?" the host inquired, eyes curious. I took a deep breath. From an unknown scribe, I suddenly became a recognized name. Invitations to speak poured in. From local libraries to mental health workshops, then larger events in distant cities. I stood before hundreds, sharing my journey as a single father, the agony of losing Emma, and how I found purpose through writing. Each time I spoke, I sensed Emma somewhere, smiling at me as if she were proud of her father. The book's royalties began to arrive. Not a fortune, but sufficient to transform our lives. I settled the overdue rent, purchased better groceries, and for the first time in years, I didn't dread the possibility of the electricity being disconnected. More significantly, I decided to vacate the cramped apartment where every corner reminded me of Emma. I discovered a small house on the outskirts of Willow Creek. Not a mansion, but spacious enough for Liam and Noah to have their own rooms, with a small backyard. On moving day, Liam dashed through the house shouting, "Daddy, I have my own room!" Noah, clutching his plastic dinosaur, bounced on the grass, laughing so heartily I couldn't help but join him. For the first time, I felt I was providing my children with a genuine home. But the sorrow of losing Emma never departed me. Each night after Liam and Noah were asleep, I sat in the new living room staring out at the dark backyard, contemplating her. I recalled her voice, the way she called "Daddy" when she needed me. The way she held my hand in the hospital. Some nights I wept, not from weakness, but because I knew this pain would always be a part of me. Yet I also recognized I had to live, not solely for Liam and Noah, but for Emma, for what she imparted to me. Angela remained a constant presence in our lives, an indispensable element. She visited the new house, bringing a small potted plant to brighten the garden, as she phrased it. Liam and Noah adored her. Liam dubbed her Superhero Angela, while Noah clung to her, demanding dinosaur tales. I gazed at her, my heart swelling with immense gratitude. Angela wasn't merely the nurse who stood by me in the hospital. She was the one who helped me perceive that life was still worth living. One evening as we sat on the porch observing Liam and Noah chase each other on the lawn, she took my hand. "You've accomplished something extraordinary, Harrison," she stated. "Not because of the book, but because you persevered." I gently squeezed her hand, uttering nothing, but knowing she was partly why I was still standing. I began attending a support group for bereaved parents held at a community center in Willow Creek. My initial visit there, I felt awkward, as if I didn't belong. But as I sat and listened to others share about a boy lost in an accident, a girl who succumbed to illness, I realized I wasn't isolated. I spoke about Emma, her dragon dreams, and how I nearly gave up. People listened, nodded, and an older woman took my hand, asserting, "You're a strong father. She must be so proud of you." For the first time, I felt understood, not as a writer or author, but as a father learning to coexist with pain. The support group became an integral part of my life. I attended weekly, not just to share, but to listen, to learn how to transform sorrow into inspiration. One member, a father named Tom, spoke of cultivating a garden in memory of his son. I thought of Emma and decided to plant a rose bush in our backyard, her preferred flower. Liam and Noah assisted me in digging the soil and watering it. And each time the roses blossomed, I felt Emma was still present in those vibrant red petals. Our new existence wasn't flawless. Some days I awoke with that same profound emptiness. Still heard Emma in my dreams. Liam still sketched flowers in the corners of his drawings, and Noah's inquiries about his sister grew less frequent, but never ceased. But we were learning to live, not to forget Emma, but to carry her with us. I continued writing, not merely for From Ashes, but because I recognized writing was my means of confronting the world, of upholding my promise to Emma. One evening, as I edited a speech for an upcoming engagement, Liam entered holding a new drawing. "Daddy, "I created this for you," he stated, handing me a sheet of paper. In the depiction, I stood between Liam and Noah, holding hands with a small girl with wings positioned on a cloud, smiling. "That's Emma," Liam explained, his voice shy. "I think she's content." I hugged him, tears streaming down my face. "She is happy, son," I whispered. "And Daddy's going to strive to be happy, too, for you and Noah." Angela visited soon after, bringing a tray of freshly baked cookies. She sat down, looked at Liam's drawing, and smiled. "He possesses talent, Harrison," she remarked. "Like his father." I chuckled, and for the first time, the laughter felt light, unburdened by sorrow. "Thank you, Angela," I stated. "For everything." She didn't reply, simply took my hand. And in that moment, I knew we were constructing something. Not to replace Emma, but to continue with her in our hearts. A year after From Ashes was published, my life had transformed in ways I never dared to envision. The modest house on the outskirts of Willow Creek was now truly our home, mine, Liam's, and Noah's. The backyard flourished with roses, Emma's cherished flower. And each morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows, I felt a flicker of serenity permeate my heart. But despite the semblance of stability, the anguish of losing Emma remained a scar that would never fully mend. I learned to coexist with it, like learning to inhale in a room with insufficient air. But sometimes, in the stillness of the night, I still heard her calling Daddy in my dreams. The triumph of From Ashes presented opportunities one hadn't contemplated. I was invited to speak in major cities from Chicago to Boston, sharing my narrative with packed auditoriums. I spoke of Emma, Liam, and Noah. Of how I nearly broke but rose again for my children. Each time I spoke, I wasn't merely recounting my experiences. I was keeping Emma's memory alive in the hearts of others. I commenced writing a second book about forgiveness and healing, though I wasn't certain I had fully forgiven those who had turned their backs on us. Then one day, the past came calling. My phone vibrated one afternoon while I was assisting Liam with his math homework. My mother's number appeared on the screen. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button, but finally pressed it. "Harrison," her voice came through, more tremulous than I recalled. "Your father and I read your book. We wish to see you and Liam and Noah. We regret not being present when you needed us." I sat in silence, listening to her belated remorse, but felt only emptiness within. I remembered the times I pleaded for assistance. When Emma was in the hospital, when I implored them to come, even for a day. "We're traveling," they had stated, as if a cruise held more importance than their granddaughter. "Thank you for calling," I replied, my voice calm but cold. "But I'm not sure I'm prepared for you to re-enter our lives, Liam and Noah. They require individuals who are there when it truly matters." My mother wept over the phone, asserting they were mistaken, that they wished to make amends. I consented to allow them to see Liam and Noah, but only for brief visits with me present, observing every moment. When they came, I noticed how they had aged, their eyes heavy with regret, but I couldn't open my heart. Not out of animosity, but because I needed to shield my children and myself from old wounds. The greatest surprise, however, was Claire. One evening, as I was reading Noah a bedtime story, my phone rang again. It was her number. I barely recognized it. So much time had passed since our last conversation. When I answered, Claire's voice emerged, strangely sweet, as if she were attempting to assume the role of the wife she once was. "Harrison, I read your book. It's extraordinary. I regret leaving. I wish to return, to begin anew. We could be a family once more." I stood frozen, gripping the phone tightly. The image of Claire departing, leaving me with 3 children, flashed vividly in my mind. I recalled her refusal to visit the hospital when Emma most needed her mother. I remembered her brief text when Emma passed, "I'm so sorry." And now, with my name known and a best-selling book, she desired to come back. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Claire, you abandoned our children when they needed you most," I stated. "You weren't there when Emma was ill, when Liam and Noah cried for their mom. I'm sorry, but there's no place for you here anymore." She pleaded, asserting she had changed, that she regretted everything. But I ended the call. I didn't detest Claire. Not anymore. I simply felt relief, as if I had finally relinquished a burden I had carried for too long. I looked at Liam and Noah playing on the floor and knew I had made the correct decision. We didn't need Claire. We had each other, and that was sufficient. While individuals from my past sought to re-enter, Angela was the one who remained, quietly but resolutely. Our relationship blossomed through small moments. Her bringing cookies, spending afternoons playing with Liam and Noah, listening to me discuss Emma without judgment. One evening, as we sat on the porch under a faint moonlight, I stated my voice, "Angela, you've done more than you know. You helped me perceive that life is still worth experiencing, even when it's painful." She smiled, placing her hand on mine. "Harrison, you're more resilient than you believe. I'm simply here to remind you of that." I realized I was developing feelings for Angela. Not the passionate affection of youth, but a profound, steady love built on comprehension and regard. She didn't attempt to supplant Emma or fill the void she left. She brought a new warmth, a sense that I could rebuild from the remnants. Once when I inquired if she'd stay for dinner, she chuckled. "Only if you promise not to prepare pasta again." I laughed too, feeling for the first time that the laughter was light, unburdened by sorrow. A year after From Ashes was released, I became a symbol not for notoriety but for my narrative. I continued speaking at workshops not solely about writing but about navigating loss. I hosted sessions at the support group, listening to other parents share about their children. I spoke of Emma, how she taught me to love, and how Liam and Noah helped me rediscover meaning. Each time I shared, I felt I was not only assisting others but healing myself. Liam and Noah matured daily. Liam, now 6, began asking more profound questions. "Daddy, does Emma see me when I play soccer?" I hugged him, asserting, "She's always watching you, Liam. She's up in the sky, cheering for you." Noah, now 4, still clung to his plastic dinosaur, but began recounting his own stories about Emma soaring on clouds. I listened, smiled, and cherished those moments in my heart like precious jewels. Angela became an indispensable part of our lives. One day, as we planted another rosebush in the garden, she knelt beside Liam and Noah, assisting them in watering it. "Do you think Emma would appreciate this flower's hue?" she inquired. Noah nodded eagerly, and Liam offered a shy smile. I gazed at her, my heart swelling with a sentiment I hadn't experienced in so long: hope. Not long after, I proposed to Angela, not with a grand gesture, but with a simple inquiry. "Would you like to build a family with us?" She smiled, her eyes sparkling, and nodded. "I'm already a part of you, Harrison." We didn't erase the past. Emma was still present in every rose, in every one of Liam's drawings, in every story Noah told, but we learned to live with her memory, transforming pain into a component of our journey. I continued writing, not solely for myself, but for those who found solace in my narrative. I composed pieces about love, loss, and resilience. And I lived for Liam, for Noah, for Angela, and for Emma, the girl who taught me that even in brokenness, illumination could be discovered. One morning, I stood in the garden, observing Liam and Noah run and laugh under the sunlight. Angela stood beside me, hand in hand, and I experienced a peace I once believed I would never know again. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. A new family forged from the ashes with affection and optimism as its bedrock. I gazed up at the sky, whispering, "Emma, I accomplished it. Are you proud of me?" And in that moment, I felt a gentle breeze as if she were smiling from above.